Welcome to Hannity. A lot of breaking news this Friday night. New information, new developments on a lot of issues. Politico is reporting this hour that the former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon may have been picked up by FBI surveillance while the Bureau had a FISA warrant on Carter Page. Also tonight, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes. He is asking for transcripts from the FISA court while the FBI was trying to get approval to monitor Page, and brand new information about that second anti-Trump dossier. Now, according to a report, congressional investigators, they are examining the documents and they want to interview the author, longtime Clinton ally Cody Shearer. Plus, a former State Department official confirms what congressional Republicans have been saying by admitting that he was sharing anti-Trump opposition research from friends of the Clintons with the dossier author, Christopher Steele. That and so much more in our breaking news opening monologue. Brand new tonight, Politico out with an explosive report about potential deep state spying on a former top Trump advisor. Here's their headline: FBI surveillance of Carter Page might have picked up Bannon. Now, according to the reporting, Carter Page was being surveilled by the FBI last January during the presidential transition when Page had a phone call about Russia with former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon. Now, according to Politico, Page made this shocking revelation during congressional testimony, and Page said at the time that Bannon called him about canceling a planned television appearance, and then Page eventually brought up the phony dossier, which BuzzFeed had published just a day earlier on January 10th. Now, it's not certain if the conversation with Bannon was picked up by the FBI, but national security experts, they're telling Politico that it's very possible that it did happen. Now, investigative reporter Cheryl Atkinson, who says the Obama administration, you may remember, she said they hacked her computers, made this very profound point on the show earlier this week. Let's take a look at this.
I was told even before Donald Trump announced for office that Intel officials, and I was told this by insiders, have sometimes been using bad information to bring to the FISA court to wrap up other people that are the true targets that they can't get a warrant against, but to wrap them up in incidental targeting different ways without maybe a direct warrant.
Wow, this is beyond shocking, and it's raising some very serious questions given the other information that we already know. Now, according to two Republican memos, the FBI lied to the FISA court. Remember, they used a Clinton bought and paid for Russian dossier. They never verified or corroborated it in order to get a warrant to spy on Carter Page. Now, remember the Grassley-Graham memo that detailed how Comey never bothered to verify all this anti-Trump information in the dossier that Christopher Steele had put together because he thought, well, the former British spy was credible in the past. Now, that same memo also uncovers how the bulk of the FISA application the FBI presented to the FISA judge consisted of the dossier that they never verified. This is unbelievable. And we also know that Comey told then President-elect Trump that the dossier was salacious and unverified during the transition. That was, 2 months before. And the dossier was good enough to get a FISA warrant, but it was unverified and salacious. This entire scandal now reeks of corruption beyond anything which we have seen before. In other words, what he's admitting here, what we're seeing here, is the powerful tools that we give our intelligence community to protect us were abused to spy on an opposition campaign during an election and before an election and after an election. Now, also tonight, Fox News has obtained House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes' letter requesting transcripts of Carter Page's FISA court hearings. This is important. Now, Chairman Nunes is asking for, quote, any relevant FISA court hearings associated with the initial FISA application or subsequent renewals related to electronic surveillance of Carter Page. I'd like to see him, too. Now, the House committee is setting a February 16th deadline. That's 1 week from tonight for the court to provide those transcripts if they, in fact, have them. Now, getting these transcripts would be a massive development because, as we have been explaining night after night, we know the top echelon of the FBI, again, they relied almost exclusively on this Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dossier to get that warrant. And then, of course, on Carter Page. And they didn't tell the FISA court that the dossier was, in fact, bought and paid for with about $12 million of monies paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC funneled through the same law firm. Now, we're following this developing story because this is key in all of this. How could you use an unverified Russian propaganda dossier to get a FISA warrant to spy on an opposition candidate and an incoming president? All right. Also, other breaking news this hour, another new explosive report. According to ABC News, Senate investigators, they are examining a second anti-Trump dossier. Now, this was put together by longtime Clinton ally, a guy by the name of Cody Shearer. And according to ABC, the Senate Intelligence Committee is now trying to set up an interview with Shearer, who reportedly is claiming that he put together the second dossier as, quote, an independent journalist. Now, nobody's buying that because, according to The Guardian, Shearer has ties going all the way back to when Bill Clinton was president in the 90s. Now, we did reach out to Shearer for comment. Shocking. He didn't get back to us. And we're also learning tonight that the State Department was, in fact, involved in obtaining and then spreading phony anti-Trump information during the campaign. Really? And a former top-ranking official at the department that Hillary Clinton used to run is admitting in a Washington Post op-ed that he was in contact with Christopher Steele also, and that Clinton confidant Sid Vicious Blumenthal gave him information that came from Cody Shearer, who we just told you about. Now, this is a striking admission from the State Department because, remember, Christopher Steele used the information. It was never verified. Clinton paid for it. Her friends are feeding Steele. Nobody verifies it. And then it's used as a basis for a FISA warrant. And you got this guy, Jonathan Weiner. It matches exactly what the memo put together by Senators Grassley and Graham exposed earlier this week when we got the unredacted version. And, of course, we have Congressman Devin Nunes. Well, he told us in an interview earlier this week that his committee is now investigating the State Department and their involvement in this. Now, in an op-ed entitled Devin Nunes is investigating me, here's the truth. Well, Weiner says that he met with Christopher Steele in Washington in September 2016 to talk about information in the dossier, after which Weiner goes on to explain about the dossier, quote, I was allowed to review but not to keep a copy of these reports to enable me to alert the State Department. I prepared a two-page summary. I shared it with Nuland, who indicated that, like me, she felt the Secretary of State needed to be aware of this material. So former Obama Secretary of State John Kerry may also be involved in this scandal, which is why he needs to now answer questions under oath about what he knew, when he knew it, and if he ever saw this dossier, what he knew about the dossier. Now, Weiner then goes on to write how later that month that he talked with his friend Sid Vicious Blumenthal, best friend of the Clintons. And Weiner admits, quote, he, talking about Blumenthal, showed me notes gathered by a journalist I didn't know, Cody Shearer, that alleged the Russians had compromising information on Trump of a sexual and financial nature. And what struck me was how some of these materials echoed Steele's, but appeared to involve different sources. So Weiner then goes on to write, on my own, I shared a copy of these notes with Steele to ask for his professional reaction. He told me it was potentially collateral information. And I asked him what he meant by that, and he said that it was similar but separate from the information he had gathered from his sources. By the way, Russian sources. Then he writes, I agreed to let him keep a copy of the Shearer notes. You know, Weiner goes on to say that Christopher Steele shared the information that he gave him to the FBI. Do you see how unbelievable this is? Now, we reached out to Blumenthal for comment. He's not responding to our request. So this whole scandal starts with Hillary Clinton, remember, rigging the primary against Bernie Sanders. Why Bernie people aren't more mad, I don't know. Then she tried to rig the general election against Donald Trump. She pays for a phony Russian propaganda dossier filled with Russian government lies and propaganda. The FBI then takes that bought and paid for dossier. They don't tell the FISA judge the truth to go out and get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign before the election, and then they use it after the election. And there's now concerns that Steve Bannon, former top Trump aide, well, that he might have been caught up in incidental surveillance. And by the way, there might be a lot of other people. And we're also learning that in addition to the Clinton campaign, well, we have Hillary's allies. They're feeding anti-Trump dirt to the State Department, which is sharing it with Christopher Steele. like we've been telling you, sit tight. If you think this is bad right now, I promise you it's going to only get worse. What we have now is a sliver of the information. It's coming out day by day. I've been warning you from the beginning. This is Watergate on steroids. And as you can see, this gets more corrupt by the day.